Sports Central. I'm Randy Karraker, Luke Slabaugh, right alongside. Great to have you with us following Mizzou's 88-84 loss to Arkansas in Columbia in overtime, and that drops Mizzou to 20-11 on the season. And our postgame is brought to you by our business banking partners at Home Bank. From business lending to everyday banking, Home Bank has been with us since day one as a trusted partner here at STL Sports Central. And business isn't just about numbers, it's about relationships. And with Home Bank, those relationships make the difference. Home Bank is the team behind our STL Sports Central team. Visit myhomebank.bank or call 855-577-2001. Home Bank, member FDIC, more than a bank, they're your business partner. The money moment of the game will come up later, brought to you by Home Bank as well. And to Luke Slabaugh, a disappointing loss for the Tigers after being down by 15 with 5:32 left in the first half. They were able to claw their way back. They led for most of the second half, but they had a bad possession at the end of regulation and then a terrible possession at the end of overtime that really cost them.
Really cost them. And we were just talking right before we went live about the timing of the turnovers. 9 first half turnovers for the Tigers, and then 2 costly ones in overtime. Ways to fight back to try to even the score against the Razorbacks. And Pierce has one, and T.O. Barrett there at the very end. It's just a combo guard, a small guy like Barrett not being able to handle the ball there in crunch time. It's unfortunate. And Dennis Gates runs that 2-guard look late in regulation. He's got Robinson and Barrett out there. A couple awkward shots with time winding down in regulation, and then the first shot of overtime coming from Barrett. I think that's a combination of things. One, they wanted a fresh shooter with fresh looks. And then, of course, I mean, the career high for Mark Mitchell, he was gassed by the time overtime came around.
Yeah.
And if I pull up the stats here, looking at that overtime period, just in those 5 minutes, how many shots does Mark Mitchell have? Well, none. No field goals, just the 2 free throws. And so I think that was kind of the story of the game, is a career performance by Mark Mitchell just fizzles out. Compare this to 2 weeks ago, Randy, when it was a track meet down Bud Walton Arena, and Arkansas averaging 90 points a game. This game at Mizzou Arena had a very distinct, different feel. Pace was a little bit slower, more deliberate. You didn't have their top guard there, Darius Acuff, due to a left ankle injury. A lot of things running in the Tigers' favor. They could have rolled over after falling behind 15 points. And Trevin Brazil, the former Tiger, really establishing a presence in the front court, did everything today. And to the Tigers' credit, they took a lead in the second half. They had a chance to win it multiple times. They came up short. It's a heartbreaker. And for those who were teetering on the fence about this team, Randy, whether or not they deserve to be in the NCAA tournament, God knows the SEC tournament standings are going to be all over the place. If they had won today and Tennessee lost to Vanderbilt, they would have gotten the double bye in the 4 seed. Now they can finish anywhere as low as 10th in that seeding, just how tight-knit the SEC standings are. So it probably wouldn't convince a fair weather or a casual fan about the Tigers, but credit to them. They played with some heart. Really loved what I saw out of Mitchell. Loved what I saw out of Phillips. Phillips playing with 4 personal fouls for a big chunk of that second half and then overtime. I thought it's disappointing. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, but a heartbreaker here in overtime.
Well, and you lose to a ranked team. Now, you had lost to that team on the road, and you lose at home, as you mentioned, without Acuff, their most important player, and you fall to 20-11 overall, and you still wind up with 10 wins in the conference. Nothing wrong with being 10-8 in the SEC, but like you said, the conference is just so tightly compressed. It's going to be hard for that committee to separate. If they're watching this game today, they say, sure, Mizzou took Arkansas to overtime, but it was on their home court, and it was without Arkansas having Acuff. And you mentioned how things slowed down. Arkansas was flying. They were up 35-20 with 5:32 left in the first half, and then Mizzou claws back within 3 at halftime. And as we mentioned, had the lead for most of that half. And you mentioned the stats, 9 turnovers in the first half, only 2 in the second half when they came back. And then they were the 2 turnovers in overtime were devastating for Mizzou. Great job by John Calipari, by the way, of keeping his team in the game despite giving up the 15-point lead. And you look at the way Mizzou, and they've been inconsistent all year long, but you look at the way that they handled the basketball at the most important times of the game. And it's really disappointing. And if I'm on that committee, and right now Joe Lunardi has them as one of the second four in. If Tennessee wins today, they'll probably pass them. And the problem that Mizzou has is, for example, if Bradley goes on and wins the Valley Conference tournament, or if SLU doesn't win the A10, then all of a sudden the SLU might wind up in the tournament, and that might steal a bid, ironically, from a school like Mizzou, because I think everybody, if SLU doesn't win the A10 tournament, looks at them as a tournament team, but somebody who they didn't expect to wind up. And right now, VCU is the last team out. So if VCU would go on and win the tournament, for example, the A10 tournament, and SLU would get knocked out, and the A10 becomes a two-bid league, I wonder if Mizzou would be victimized by SLU losing in the A10 tournament. That seems to be the way it works, is those bids that get stolen by the mid-majors. And I would think that would be the scary aspect of things for Mizzou. And how much different would it have been, Luke? And we're going to get to your chats here in a moment, but how much different would it be if they had that double bye? If they didn't have to worry about losing in the first or second round of the SEC tournament? Because if they lose in the first round of the SEC tournament, their hold on a bid is really tenuous for Mizzou.
And it kind of reminds me of the Conzo Martin days, where it was the first game and then you were pretty much out in Nashville. I mean, double bye, it's great. You wait till Friday to play. You've got time to scout and observe and what's going on down there at the tournament. It would have put them in prime position and in the driver's seat. I also think, to your point earlier, it's been an inconsistent season. Sometimes two steps forward and two steps back for this team. You have an incredible, win against Tennessee, and then you drop a couple more conference games. A good win a couple weeks ago. And then I'm just thinking recently the Oklahoma loss, for example, where all those issues from earlier in the season reared their ugly heads when it came to turnover, when it came to free throw shooting, sometimes some perimeter shooting issues. And so, the tournament would be a great place to make a statement. And if they can win a game there on Friday night, that would be one more cog in the machine to kind of build their case for the NCAA tournament. But you are what your resume is. And to their credit, I mean, Mizzou, they were sitting at 10 quad 1, quad 2 wins going into this game. A win over Arkansas, I think, would have turned a few heads. But yeah, I just saw a comment here from Jeremy Hodge. He said he was feeling bad on senior day, but he says he can't stand it when they only make 1 out of 2 free throws. I've got to make both of them. To their credit, shooting 75% today from free throw range. I mean, still some costly misses there, but 18 of 24 from the line, better than that 69.
Yeah, that's typical of a college basketball team, isn't it, Luke? And Arkansas was only 63% from the line today. Yes, you would like to, especially at crunch time, have a guy that shoots 80% and hits the most important ones, but that's just not realistic. And there aren't many guys, and never have been a lot of guys that have hit a ton of free throws. Even when like Pete Maravich was playing, or when Larry Bird was playing, we remember them. Ray Allen never missing free throws. We remember those, but we don't remember the guys that couldn't shoot free throws. And there's a lot more guys in history that couldn't than did. And so I'm with you. I think 75% is reasonable. There were a lot of parts of this game that, for me, caused Mizzou to not win. And you never want to boil it down to 1 point in the game or one play in the game. But man, I go back to that. Sorry, I dropped the microphone here, Luke. But you never want to. Here, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to have a little thunder for you guys. See, there we go. Okay, we're back now. But they go from 14:31 of the first half to 7:57 of the first half, and the Tigers are 0 of 7 from the floor and turned it over 6 times. And yes, even though they came back late in the first half and drew within 3, when you go basically 7 minutes without, they scored once. They were outscored 17-2 in that run. But right when you go that long and your game just disappears, that's how you lose a game. So we're talking about the bad possession at the end of the first half and the bad possessions in overtime. But that would have been a different game if Mizzou would not have been down 15 with 5.5 minutes left in the first half. If they wouldn't have had that run where they were outscored 17-2, and granted, they had a good run too against Arkansas, but if they would have been consistent, it's kind of a microcosm of the season. They would have been consistent throughout the course of this game, they would have won it against Arkansas. But that's the way Mizzou has been, and that's the way basketball is. It is a game of runs. But at the end of the day, what that committee is going to do is they're going to look at, yes, quad one loss, but it's on your home floor, and you lost to a team that didn't have its best player, and a game that there was a level of desperation for Mizzou. I would think that those are the items in this particular game that the committee will look at. The committee will also look at wins over Florida, wins over Tennessee, wins over Vandy, win over Kentucky. Mizzou had a lot of really good wins during the SEC season. And if they make the tournament, that's going to be the reason, because they were good enough in the SEC to beat the best teams. Did they have some bad losses? Yes. Oklahoma the other night being one of them. But I'm convinced, Luke, that if they wind up in the tournament, it's going to be because of those good wins in the conference that they play in.
I'm totally with you on that. There were some landmark wins, the historic win down there at Rupp Arena you had mentioned. Plenty of highlights this season and plenty of good, outstanding individual performances. At the end of the day, it comes down to late game execution. And we saw that with the T.O. Barrett turnover there in overtime. Arkansas wanted this to be a track meet, and it wasn't. Mm-hmm. They didn't have Acuff. They were pounding the paint early in the game, and then, of course, they build up that 15-point lead. But the pace and composure that Mizzou played with, I thought, was good for senior day. I thought Mark Mitchell created some good mismatches there against the guards that Arkansas had. And, it's late game execution that's was kind of a thorn in this team's side. So regroup, do it at the SEC tournament, come back refreshed, hopefully get a good seed there, or a better seed than 10th, I would say, and attack it again. There was one comment here, and I'll point to it. Safari Elvis 36 saying could be a bigger heartbreak loss than we think unless they get in the finals of the conference tournament. Mary Likens just chiming in, will the committee look at all the gifts the away team got on Horde offensive possessions? And I'm going to be honest here. The refs did a pretty good job of swallowing the whistle. Arkansas, get this, not in the bonus until under 5 minutes in regulation. Mm-hmm. Like they were allowing contact under the rim. Phillips was able to play his game for most of it. I did not see early on a couple of baseline didn't they step out of bounds that didn't go Mizzou's way. But this was not a ref confection. It was, it was late game execution.
And I don't know if the committee goes that micro in looking at possessions and officiating at the end of a close game. And maybe if there is a debate in the room as to one team or the other, and it gets down to one game, and especially if the teams have played each other, which this will not be a factor, I don't think that that's going to be something that the committee will necessarily look at. I think that they'll probably look a little bit bigger picture here and see the heartbreak loss is the one to Oklahoma. That's the game that you can't lose, even though it's on the road and even though it's senior night at Oklahoma. If you're a tournament team, you can't be losing that game. So I would look at Oklahoma, Luke, as a bigger heartbreak loss for the Tigers than this game today. The 20th ranked team in the nation. Granted, they didn't have their best player, and granted, you did lose it on your home field. But I still think that the Oklahoma loss is a much worse and much more effective in terms of making the tournament or not loss than the Arkansas. Wouldn't you agree?
I certainly would agree. Again, you can't afford to lose to a team in the conference standings like that. Bottom line, it's pretty much all I'd have to say about that.
So, and I think the other thing we have to look at is how many teams in the SEC are on the bubble right now, and there are a lot. There are a lot of teams that, based on what happens today, could be the team out. And I think there will probably be 10 SEC teams, and there will be probably a couple of teams in the conference that don't make it because of being, for lack of a better term, kind of being bipolar like Mizzou. And Texas is going to be in that group. Tennessee is going to be in that group. Right now, Kentucky is in. Georgia 21-9. They're going to be a bubble team. Texas 9-8 in the conference. If they win today, they'll get to 19 wins. They'll be a bubble team. Auburn is. Everybody else below that is probably out. But I would think that the group of Mizzou, Georgia, and Texas are going to be on pins and needles as we approach Selection Sunday next Sunday.
How about that artificial discourse online about Auburn versus Miami of Ohio, right? And I know Bruce Pearl doing his commentator gig, and yes, Auburn has played much better competition than the Redhawks, but the Twitter discourse on that has been nothing short of a disappointing from Couch Sports.
There's an old saying for Auburn: if you don't like it, play better. And what else do people expect Miami of Ohio to do, right? They've won every single game they've played. And if they lose in the tournament, I still think at 31-1, I think that they should make it over a team that can't even have a winning record in its own conference, a team that's 16-14 overall. Auburn might be a better team than Miami of Ohio, but they haven't proved it. And if Auburn wanted to be in the tournament, they can still win the SEC tournament. They can go ahead and do that. But in my opinion, a 16-14 team should not be in the tournament over a team that's undefeated, that hasn't lost a game. And you can't ask any more of the kids from Miami of Ohio. Mary Likens, that's a game right there. 2 horrid calls. Your response: I'm shaking in anger. There was so much more than bad calls in this game, Mary, and I know you're a fan, and you should be upset, but you should also, again, be upset by the turnovers in the first half. 9 turnovers in the first half by Mizzou. You should be upset by the 2 bad turnovers in overtime. You should be upset by the bad possession and Luke, they had plenty of time at the end of the game, at the end of regulation, to get a good shot. They never even got a decent shot off at the end of regulation. That's the kind of thing that should have you shaking in anger rather than saying the officials screwed us over, right? I think that for Mizzou, if they're in their locker room right now and blaming the officials, their anger is misdirected dramatically.
Yeah, and they won't. That certainly won't be a cause for concern among Dennis Gates or his staff or his players. You had mentioned the word bipolar previously, and I think that's a really good summation of being a Mizzou fan the last however many years. I mean, post, Frank Haith years, the last time they had made back-to-back NCAA tournaments, all this overarching talk about making the tournament, the fact that Mizzou is in this conversation is great. But again, late game scenarios like the ball being in T.O. Barrett's hands when you got a chance to tie the game in overtime, which I believe is going to be our money moment of the game. But yeah, it's things like that, Randy. And ultimately, Mizzou's, it's on them to clean it up and get a good look there at the SEC tournament. But yeah, I think it comes down to who do you want having the ball in those late game scenarios? And, if Mitchell is gassed, what is your next best option to score? I mean, no shot attempts from Phillips and Mitchell in overtime. Well, excuse me. No, Phillips had 1 in overtime. Yeah. But man, it's a missed opportunity. It's something to learn from. And hopefully it's not too little too late.
And Mitchell, I get that he was gassed, but part of being a great basketball player is being there at the end and being in condition so that you can be better than the other guy in the last of the 40 minutes or the 45 minutes that you play. And that is what makes the truly great ones great, is that they show up. And unfortunately, for Mizzou, Mitchell, who had a career game, he certainly doesn't deserve any blame for this loss, but when he doesn't take a shot in OT, that tells me that maybe he was totally gassed. And that is a shame for the University of Missouri. And you are absolutely correct about our home bank play to bank on today. 7 seconds left. Mizzou gets it. And T.O. Barrett at the end of the regulation, misses a layup, and that was really devastating for Mizzou. And it wasn't a good shot. He didn't give himself a good opportunity to get the ball in the bucket. And unfortunately for Mizzou, in this 88-84 overtime loss, that is our money moment of the game, brought to you by Home Bank, the team behind our team at STL Sports Central. Visit My Home Bank, bank or call myhomebank.bank, or call 855-577-2001, 855-577-2001. Our Home Bank moment of the game is unfortunately a missed shot for Mizzou at the end of regulation. You have plenty of time, 7 seconds, to set that ball up and get yourself a good shot, and it just was not there for T.O. Barrett at the end of regulation or at the end of overtime.
Yeah, off balance shot there at the end of regulation, and I struggle to. I know Pelican's been on him all year, so I'm not gonna be like that at all. But yeah, it's it's having the sense to draw up a good play and adjust. If Mitchell was guarded well there on that final possession, you gave it your best shot today. I mean, Mitchell, career high 32 points, the 8th Tiger to do it in 2 seasons, the 49th all time. So in his 2 seasons, the Duke transfer, able to put together a statement game that just came up a little bit short.
And so now Mizzou heads into the SEC tournament. Later on in the week, they will not have the bye, the double bye that they were hoping for. And there's so many things that can happen, Luke, with the standings the rest of the day. Mizzou finishes 20-11 in the 20-11 overall. They finished 10-8 in the conference, but you've got 3 teams playing this afternoon and tonight that are all 10-7, Vandy, A&M, and Kentucky, plus Georgia could also finish 10-8, and Texas could finish 10-8. So it is a jumble, and we have no idea who Mizzou will play at the outset of the SEC tournament. But we do know that Florida, Arkansas is set. They finished second in the conference, and they're going to get the double bye along with Alabama. And if Tennessee can win today, they would clinch a double bye as well. And then after that, we have no idea, which is what makes it so great. There's a ton of parity. And if somehow Missouri can put things together for a stretch of 3 games, they can assure themselves a pretty good shot. Now, if you can win 4 in a row, then all of a sudden you're in the tournament. But if you can get to the SEC conference finals with the resume that they already have, I think they'll be in pretty good shape in terms of an at-large bid. But I think Mizzou's in trouble right now. I think this loss puts them squarely right on top of the bubble. And things that happen in all the other conference tournaments will determine whether or not Mizzou is going to be an NCAA tournament at-large team, unless they win the automatic bid in the SEC.
I'm with you 100%. It's very disconcerting when you are on the bubble and your fate is not in your hands. And it, part of the situation plays out tonight and how they re-rack the tiebreakers in the SEC, and then putting your best foot forward on a big stage when March Madness starts to ramp up there in the conference tournament. So if they can pull out a win or 2 at the SEC tournament, then power to them. And it is an inconsistent season. They had a chance to make a big statement today, heartbreaker in overtime, and it's all systems go from here. There's no excuses after this.
No, and this is something with Mizzou all year long. They have been plagued by inconsistency. And granted, they did have 5 players in double figures today. We mentioned Mitchell with his career high 32, Pierce and Phillips each with 13, Stone with 11, and Barrett with 10. But the 4 turnovers by Phillips and then the 2 huge turnovers by T.O. Barrett ultimately are what did in Mizzou. Let's also point out, and we haven't given Arkansas much credit today, but Arkansas played really well. They got off to the big start. Things fell apart for them, and then late in the game and in overtime, they were able to take advantage of Mizzou's mistakes, and they were able to make the big shots. And that's a good team. Any John Calipari team is going to be a good team. But I think that's one thing that we have to note is that Arkansas played really well today. So let's not take any credit away from them.
No credit taken whatsoever. And Malik Thomas, the freshman, stepping up with a cup out, goes 5 of 6 from 3-point land. And I think the Razorbacks did a good job as the game progressed of exploiting the perimeter defense that Mizzou was putting up there. So I think you saw some weak side attempts where they were able to kick the ball out and get to an unguarded guy. They played their game to the best of their ability. Without their engine, they were still able to put up 88 points in 40 minutes and some change.
And overall, I would have liked to have seen Mizzou's regular season be better than it was. And there were some losses there. We touched on Oklahoma. Missouri should probably be, rather than a 20-win team, they should probably be at least a 22 or a 23-win team. But they lost some games that they shouldn't have. They lost the Oklahoma game. You go back to the home loss to Texas, and that one could determine whether or not Mizzou gets in, because they'll be right there on the bubble with a team like Texas. Earlier in the non-conference schedule, you had a couple of losses that you probably would have preferred to avoid. So out of those 11 losses that Mizzou suffered, there were 2 or 3 that probably should have gone Mizzou's way. And now it's on Dennis Gates with the great recruiting class and the freshmen that he has coming in, and losing the seniors that played today on senior day. I'll be interested to see, with the talent that Mizzou is bringing in, what they can be next year. But before we get to that, we've got to get to the SEC tournament and hopefully the NCAA tournament for the Missouri Tigers. And Luke, this has been a fun post-game show. We hope. Oh, and why did this team lose against Notre Dame and Ole Miss? There you go. Those the great examples. Shouldn't have lost, and granted, it was a last-second loss at Notre Dame. At least you lost that one on the road. But you're right. There are some losses there that would have assured Mizzou an at-large bid, but they didn't win them. And those are the ones that come back to haunt you on Selection Sunday.
Yeah, it's horseshoes and hand grenades at this point. And you mentioned senior day, Mitchell, Stone, Phillips, Cruz, Porter. I mean, all guys that made their mark to the best of their ability in this season in particular. And it's hard to imagine, what it's going to look like with Phillips out of the picture, but on to the next 7-foot guy there. And, for Mitchell, I mean, to be able to put up 1,000 points in 2 seasons as a Missouri Tiger, transferring from a blue blood program and playing his game here, power to him. And to cap it off with this final home game, it's good stuff. Just came up
career high 32. Absolutely. It is good, and it shows the power of NIL. That's a good thing. And Mizzou has that.
Bring it on, baby.
Yeah, they have that going in the basketball program. Luke, this has been great, and hopefully we'll see some people during our post games for the NCAA tournament as well. You've had a great season here, and we've got a lot of post games today. SLU is playing today. The Cardinals playing spring training baseball. We've got City SC. So STL Sports Central has us covered for the post games for everything that's going on in the world of sports in the St. Louis area.
Yes, sir. We'll sign off now. 28 minutes in. Appreciate your time, Randy, as always.
All right. Thanks. And thanks to our friends at Home Bank, our official banking partners here at STL Sports Central. Home Bank, the team behind our STL Sports Central team. Visit myhomebank.bank or call 855-577-2001. Arkansas 88, Mizzou 84 in overtime. For Luke, I'm Randy, and we'll see you next time here at STL Sports Central.